This is the Sluggo, slant and go.
College football expert Joel Klatt. Tell America the name of your favorite podcast.
It's called Sluggo.
Look at there, Casey. I forgot how to do it. We took a week off, we didn't take a week off, but we took half a week off, and I forgot how to do it already. Hey, there's only two of us tonight. Las could not make it, but he promised to be in the comments, and I don't see any comments so far. So maybe he's sleeping the night away. But it's me and you tonight, like the old days, and we're going to make some picks and see if we can possibly be worse than last week. Casey, my modem crapped out in the middle of the show last week, and it died. It never came back. I rebooted and threw it against the wall, and it never came back. And you know what I found out? My education for the week is that it is incredible how many things in your house in 2022 are connected to the internet, and therefore, when you change modems, need to be reset.
Oh, golly.
Phones, the stove, TVs, laptops, desktops, Chromebooks, just every time and then, when I say the TV, there's the TV, and then of course there's Netflix and on and on and on. And just crazy. What day was it? It was Saturday. Got a new modem on Thursday, got it all connected so we could work, but it was Saturday before I gave a crap about connecting all that stuff. But spent a good chunk of Saturday morning, because we didn't have Clemson football, reconnecting to the internet. But I'm back.
It's crazy how much stuff is connected, and how handcuffed we are if something goes down. It's just funny.
Kevron checks in and says, "Good evening. Cade Klubnik is a wonderful quarterback." Well, he was wonderful Monday night, late in the game where a team was beat really bad. I watched him. I say this 10 times a week, but I watched him in high school. He was wonderful. He looked very much like he did the other night. That was Cade Klubnik in high school, what you saw the other night, just leading his team down the field. Anybody who can average, I think they averaged close to 60 points a game in high school his senior year. And of course, he didn't play all those because it was 60-9 or whatever. But good quarterback. And we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. Yeah, we were talking before we went live about third world problems, and that's it. I'm worried about connecting my stove to the internet, and there are people without stoves or without houses for that matter. So yes, definitely third world problems. Hey, Case, I don't know if you know this, but North Carolina and North Carolina State, they played last week. They didn't play each other, but they had two separate games that were wild and crazy affairs. And I think what I learned is North Carolina does not have a defense. And NC State may be a tad overrated. What was your takeaway from those two thrilling games where North Carolina beat App State and NC State held off East Carolina because of a missed field goal?
Yeah, the NC State, East Carolina. I just feel, and here I go, right? I'm going off the rails already, but I just feel like NC State, I don't know what they've done, but they try to give away games. They were up seemingly comfortably, albeit, just a 7-point game, but it just feels like they don't want to win, or they don't know how to finish, and they're getting a lot of excuses in their favor this week, with saying the rivalry between East Carolina and North Carolina State is something that no one understands. ECU is going to be okay, but I do think that North Carolina State may be a little overrated. Now the defense is pretty good. They only gave up 20 points. The DBs look. I thought they were going to be better on the backside of the ball of the defense, and the linebackers are good. They are. The Peyton Wilson is very, very good. The front four leaves something to be desired. ECU was able to get a little running game going. And as far as North Carolina, what a fun game with App State, and of course Clemson's own Chase Bryce throwing for how many touchdowns? 6 in the fourth quarter and
Yeah,
still losing.
40
That was a
points.
fun game. That was a fun game to watch, and you're right, North Carolina. Where's your defense? They got a game this week that they may end up losing to Georgia State. We'll see. We'll never hear the end of it from South Carolina fans if that happens.
No doubt. And Georgia State gave South Carolina a scare for a little while. It kind of faded at the end in a onside kick or whatever it was, returned for a touchdown, and just kind of got out of hand there at the end. But look who checked in there, Beef. He is awake and able to type. He spells men really funny though. So Locke's good to see you, bud.
If he's able to get in the comments, he should be on the show. I mean, like, no excuses.
No excuses. SEC. He'd still be talking about the SEC. Hey, another good game on Sunday. A thriller was Florida State and LSU. I don't know how good either team's going to end up being, but it was actually a really, really good game that came down to a blocked extra point when everybody assumed the game was going to be tied and go to overtime. What a fun game to watch. My takeaway is FSU cares again, and they could make it interesting when Clemson plays them. And who knows if Clemson doesn't get better on the offensive line and that receiver, Florida State could certainly win. But that was my takeaway. FSU played like they cared, win or lose.
Yeah, I think this is a common theme though with over the last couple of years is once they get punched in the mouth and maybe lose a game or two, that's when they just completely drop off. So we'll see. I think they're off this week actually, but we'll see how their schedule shapes up in the next couple of weeks. I think that could be fun again. It really could. I think Jordan Travis is actually a very good quarterback. He's tough. He's a load to bring down. They were talking about the three-headed monster at running back. Didn't do a whole lot against a relatively good front four from LSU. But again, really fun game. If FSU, Mike Norvell's getting killed for throwing a pitch at the goal line. I mean, it happens so often, but when it doesn't work, he's a moron. Danny Cannell was on Twitter saying, how many times did I pitch the ball to Warwick Dunn down at the one? It always seemingly worked out. So, I mean, it's one of those things. If it works, it's great. You're the hero. If it doesn't work, you're the GOAT. It's a terrible play call. So what a fun game again, like that Sunday night game. And I was in a group chat on Twitter the other day and talking about that game. And I said, well, I hope Monday night's a laugher. And a lot of the people from all over the country were like, well, for our sake, we hope it's not. So it started me getting a little butterflies in my chest after that one. Like I didn't want it to be a good game,
John Chancey says he's surprised how big of a step that state offensive line took just because one guy went to the NFL.
Yeah, I believe they have 4 guys back, and it was only Aquanu that left for the NFL. So yeah, I mean, left tackle, it's a big hole, but still.
Yeah. I was going to say about Florida State. I think I made a similar comment in our Rubbing the Rock chat about if they lose a game or two. They care. They look like they care now. What happens when they lose a game or two, and will they still care, or will they care, more about the NFL? Ohio State and Notre Dame played a really good game on Saturday. I guess I actually probably should have had this one further up the list to talk about since it was on Saturday night. But a good game. Notre Dame surprised me on defense. They did not surprise me on offense. I didn't think they'd be very explosive, and that proved to be true for the most part. But they surprised me at how well they played the Buckeyes on defense. Was that more Ohio State or Notre Dame? I guess we'll find out over the next 11 games of the season. But Notre Dame looked like they can play on defense, which may spell trouble for Clemson early in November in South Bend or Notre Dame, Indiana, wherever they call it these days.
That defense was flying. They were very good. They were probably better than advertised. You knew they were going to be good with Marcus Freeman at the head, but they were good. But was it a case of Ohio State just not clicking yet? I don't know. Here we go, name dropping without dropping names. I was watching with an Ohio State alum the other night, and he had his head in his hands for most of the game. But all I kept saying was, "Where is Travion Henderson? Like, who did he hurt? What class did he skip?" Because he was getting all this praise preseason. He was great last year for them at running back, and he didn't show up at all. He was barely in it. It seemed when they have that bruising running back as their backup, and then they would bring in Henderson as kind of like a change of pace thing, and they wouldn't even give him the ball a lot of times. But losing Jackson Smith and Jiba probably didn't help early in that game. I mean, you can make excuses all day, probably for both sides. I will say Notre Dame is absolutely inept on offense, and I know I'll probably get killed by friend of the show, Pauch, but they didn't look good on offense at all. I thought they were putrid on offense. Now, is that Ohio State getting better with Jim Knowles as the DC? I don't know. I mean, what a difference a year makes then, or what a difference just an offseason makes, because you figured that they were going to be able to run on them, especially with the running backs that Notre Dame has. And I know they lost some wide receivers, but yikes, as Houston would say, woof.
that Clemson Notre Dame game, I think I'm going to lock in the under next to
Right.
It could be like 9-6 or something. A battle of field goals. This week is not a lot of good games, as Locks pointed out to us last week, or earlier this week. Just not a lot of good games to choose from, and you'll see that in our picks, folks out there listening. Well, I had some strange off-the-wall games to pick to choose from this week. Not a lot going on, but there is one game right down the street from me, Austin, Texas, Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. Texas is hosting Alabama, and Alabama's a 20-point favorite in Austin. And if Texas is back and they're a 20-point underdog, I'd hate to see what would happen if they are not back. But that's really the biggest game of the year. Now, one of us has a pick on that. You don't have to go too deep into it, but what's your just kind of
Well, are we going to talk Clemson, Georgia Tech too? Are we going to discuss that one in a little bit?
Yes,
I didn't know.
I skipped right over it. Maybe it's mentally.
That's okay. That's okay.
Maybe it's a mental thing. I tried to.
You're trying to flush it too.
Let's talk about Clemson and Georgia Tech. Well, we can do that. I appreciate that, Beef. Takeaways. I don't know. Offense looked the same as last year. Couldn't run the ball against Georgia Tech, and they had trouble doing that last year. I think last year they ended up with 267 total yards or something, under 300 against the Georgia Tech defense. They got shredded the rest of the season. And it's very similar this year. I just don't get it. The right side of the line, Blake Miller, Walker Parks, and even Will Putnam at center didn't play well if you're looking at the grades. They didn't play well if you're looking at the screen. Miller, gave up a sack, 4 pressures, all kinds of stuff was happening there. The offensive line was not good. The wide receivers weren't very good, but there's a couple of exceptions there. Obviously, Bo Collins had a couple of big plays. But my man, I got an article coming on rubbingtherock.com tomorrow about Antonio Williams, who did look good, and he looks like a piece that was missing from Clemson last year in the slot.
Yeah, I think again, can you speak today? Sorry. I'm usually like the doom and gloomer guy, and I think I'm kind of turning over a new leaf here.
Oh, no.
I saw a lot of good this weekend or Monday. I really did. I thought the first drive was atrocious for Clemson. They couldn't run the ball, and you saw pretty early on the offensive line. I just thought, nerves, first drive, at least get a first down, maybe then kick. That's fine. That didn't happen. Second drive, they started with the little trying to get DJ loose and in a groove, and threw some screens and some little slants and some outs, and I felt really good about it because it was starting to move. And I think I even said in our Rubbing the Rock thing, I'm like, here we go. This is awesome. He's in a groove. Then he fumbles the snap, and now you're behind the chains again, and the 3rd and 8 rears its ugly head. So that was ugly. And then he fumbles. I guess that was the second drive, or was that the third drive? Doesn't matter. Then he fumbles, and then complete confidence went out the window for the rest of the quarter. I don't know what happened in between the first and second quarter, but then when he came out in the second quarter, I thought he started throwing the ball better. Was he throwing off his back foot sometimes? Yes. But was he hitting his guys in his hands in stride? Yeah, he threw one, I believe, to Bo that was behind him. But even still, like, looked better. I was like, this is a guy we hadn't seen. And it felt like a little bit of confidence. I hate the fact that it takes 3 series to get him back confident, but that's what it seems. I really felt also that the scheme was probably to run to open up the pass, and Brandon Streeter went away from that real quick after the first drive because I think he didn't see any holes, and I think he may have seen some issues up front, as we all probably did. That was like, well, scrap it. We got to figure something else out. And then the third quarter, I thought DJ settled in. I saw something today that his, what do they call it, like corrected completion percentage. That means balls that should have been caught it was 85%.
Yeah.
So he had something like 6 drops, even though I guess officially we only counted 3. But the balls that he was throwing, there was one drive that he had three passes in succession that were on the money, and he had 1 completion.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of good. Of course, once Cade comes in at the end, and he was facing first-string DBs, don't let the Georgia Tech fans tell you otherwise. Now, were they playing as hard? Maybe not. But when you see Cade able to take 1 drive and move him down the field, and Quadzilla taking a couple runs through some holes, that makes you start questioning things. But I feel good about this team. I really do. And I think, and here I am again, like I was last year, long-winded first and foremost, but secondly, really on DJ's back, I think he's going to get better. I really do. I think he's going to start getting a little confidence. Now, he needs balls of steel a little bit, because I think when he gets punched in the mouth, he kind of withers and goes into a ball for a little while. We need him to go next. Like Trevor. If Trevor threw an interception, he went to the sideline and came back and threw seeds. Deshaun did the same thing. It seems like it takes DJ a while to get back in the groove. Hope that doesn't hurt Clemson, but it may. And the defense. Oh, my God, the defense.
Yeah, we'll get to the defense. Locke says, did the play calling stink, or don't they have the players or O-line to call better plays? And I think it's the second part in my mind. I think they're scared to throw the ball deep because they're going to get DJ killed, and they can't run the ball. So they're just doing the basic enough to get by. I just don't think they're going to throw deep. I don't think they have the wide receivers. We keep saying Bo Collins is a nice player, right? But he's not Mike Williams, and none of the other guys, I think, are even close. The wide receivers just aren't what they used to be in my mind.
No, I think Bo Collins is Sharon Peak. I think Bo Collins is Martavis Bryant. Both the thing that both those guys had were complete studs on the other side. They had Martavis Bryant had Hopkins and Watkins. I mean, you loved Martavis Bryant. Martavis Bryant had a lot of long touchdowns for Clemson. He was fantastic, but he wasn't Hopkins and Watkins.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I love Bo. I think Bo's great, but he's probably like the best number 2 receiver in the country that has to play at the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I just think they're scared to go deep, and that limits what you can do on the ground.
Where was Takari? Where was Takari, Colin?
Good question. John Chansey, when he tossed the ball to Shipley while being sacked, he got his mojo and did really well. Scared the crap out of me. It worked out. He did that how many times during the game? At least 2, maybe 3, because one time I was screaming, just take the sack. Well, I was screaming on the text. Just take the sack. It was such a dangerous play to even try. The receiver was covered. It was going to lose yardage anyway, and all. Not with Shipley, with the previous one, the one I was screaming about. It's just dumb. Just take this. That's how you get pick sixes. That's how he got them last year, by trying to underhanded throw. He threw, I think, 3 underhand passes in the game, and 2 of them were complete. One of them was good, and and one was incomplete and could have been a disaster. And I think one was complete but short of the first down. So we just gotta not do that. I just take the sack when you need to. Yeah, take the sack when you need to. Okay, Anthony Weeks says, I disagree. Antonio Williams is going to take the top off when he gets the attempts. Could
Well,
be.
I mean, I hope so, and I think he has absolutely the skill set for it, no question. But how many times did we see Clemson go deep the other night? They took no shots. The only long pass they had was the completion in the sideline to Davis Allen. I think that was more than 20 yards, and it was 22 yards. So I hope you're right, Anthony. I really do. I want to see them take a shot. Once a drive. Remember, Chad Morris would at least take a shot.
Yeah.
It just feels like, and you see it all day Saturday. You see these guys going deep all the time, and it's like, why we have the players? Why don't we go deep ever? And I keep saying we, but it's how I feel on the weekends. Sorry.
Anthony Weeks, you certainly could be right, but I'll tell you this: at least on Monday, my days are all screwed up because they played on Monday. At least on Monday, Antonio Williams' average depth of target was negative. He caught all his passes behind the line of scrimmage, which is what the slot does at Clemson. And my article I got coming out tomorrow is saying that's perfectly fine because that's something they missed last year, right? Even when they completed those passes behind the line of scrimmage, there was no blocking and they didn't go anywhere. But Antonio Williams had 37 yards receiving and 38 yards after the catch. He was catching them at or behind the line and running after the catch, which did not happen last year. So that, for me, is certainly a problem. And Zach is going to bring up something that I have another article about tomorrow on Rubbing the Rock. Locks, number 11 is a beast. I put a little clip in our Rubbing the Rock chat today. He made Paul Ticcio look like a high school player. He just went right by him. I think Ticcio might have got a fingernail on him as he slung the Georgia Tech quarterback to the ground. The defense looked as advertised for the most part. A couple of problems on the back end, first game, whatever. There was some finger pointing there on the Tech touchdown pass. But, yeah, that's the thing kids do these days.
But those linebackers, man, oh my goodness gracious. How much room? There was that one play that it was a screen or a swing pass out to the right side, and Trenton Simpson came from like my house and and cut the play off. I mean, holy moly. And there was probably, I don't know the scheme or the call that well, but I almost feel like he may have been out of position. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he was covering somebody over the slot. It didn't matter if he was out of position because good night, the closing speed. And I thought Barrett Carter did some great things outside of the front four. And KJ Henry was just unreal. But, yeah, I thought, the back end's the back end. There's going to be miscommunication. But I thought Jeff Sims for Georgia Tech played a heck of a game, especially after that first drive. He's tough, man. And now that he's got somebody competent calling plays for him, if his coach could call a timeout, maybe they would have something special there. But I think with Chip Long there as offensive coordinator, Jeff Sims is going to be a pretty serviceable quarterback. I really, truly believe they're going to be better than 3-9 this year.
Remember when Dabo first started and he used all his timeouts and people would just rail on him for it, and you get midway through the second quarter and he'd have no timeouts left. But Jeff Collins used all of his in the first 4 minutes of the second half, I think.
And it was still a close game at that point. Like,
they were mystified in the booth, which is not surprising.
This is a great point.
Weeks says, got to have a confident quarterback to make downfield throws. Cade showed us a small sample size. Yeah, the Cade Klubnik drive was really, really something. How much do you put into it? I saw the guy do that for 2 years in high school. He only started 2 years. And so it didn't really surprise me. I guess it surprised me as a true freshman in your first drive, he did that. But especially with the offensive line that I watched the rest of the night. But it shows you that, how do I say this nicely? I don't think DJ is the entire problem on offense, but it shows you if a quarterback elevates his play, the offense around him is also elevated, right? I spend a lot of time defending DJ, saying the offense isn't doing this, they're not blocking, they're not catching. Nobody had trouble catching passes from Cade Klubnik. Now, it wasn't the first string guys, but I'm saying nobody had trouble catching his passes, snapping the ball to him, etc. Maybe he's just snake bit. I don't know, but it just looked like a totally different team on that drive.
Yeah, they moved him around in the pocket. I think I said early in one of the text chains that why aren't they moving DJ at all? And maybe he's not comfortable with throwing on the run. Cade looked perfectly comfortable throwing on the run and had no problem doing it, especially when he rolled out to the right and he did it on the touchdown throw, the orange crush play to Will Taylor. But he threw 2 balls to Drew Sweeney. I mean, good Lord, are we going to keep seeing these Sweeney kids run out there? What the first pass that he threaded the needle was over the middle too, which is always a breath of fresh air for Clemson fans.
Anthony says Tommy's different with Cade in there. Couldn't agree more. You know, DJ to me looks, and I say I'm defending him. Here I am, not defending him. There's something going on there. He stumbles when he runs. The first snap on 3rd and 1 in the first series was a little bit high, but it wasn't over his head. It just looks a little off for whatever reason. When he runs, he stumbles a lot and falls forward, which is not always a bad thing. The passes are just a tick off. It's just, I can't explain it. It's just weird. But Anthony has a good point here. Anything else? Aiden Swanson looked pretty good. Now, he had a couple of shorter punts, but he also had some 50-yarders. So it looked pretty good in his first starting role as a punter.
Yeah, it looked like his get-off was a little slow. But I know there's like that fine line because punters want to hold it as long as they possibly can to get their guys down the field. But the first couple, and I said, "Oh God, we might have some punts blocked tonight." I didn't think it was going to be the other way around that Clemson would get to, but yeah, I thought he was great, especially that first one. Especially we've been hearing things about the punting team, even though JP came on here and told us it was a little overblown, and his first punt went 51. So, and it just kept going. The camera just kept moving. The ball wasn't even in the frame yet. And I was like, "Holy moly, we hadn't seen this." Even with Will Spires. Yeah, before him.
Yeah, I was going to say, you thought some punts were going to be blocked. They were, and maybe he watched that dude get a punt blocked and said, "Hey, I better."
It was the next punt that he hurried up and that was the one he didn't shank it, but it only went like 33 and it kind of rolled. For Georgia Tech to hit. It was literally after the first block. I was like, let's see how we do now. Because you figure Jeff Collins is going to come after him. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a layperson over here watching the games, but with no real football knowledge other than as a fan. And I saw it. So he didn't send anybody, though.
John Chancey says DJ just doesn't look like a natural playing quarterback. That's a great point. Maybe that's what I was trying to say with 7,000 words. Chancey said it with 7, which is kind of the opposite.
Role reversal.
On rubbing the rock.
Role reversal.
Klubnik looks completely like a natural. Agree with that too, Chancey. Great point. Okay. Now we can talk about Bama and Texas. You've got a pick on this game, so without giving away your pick, what are you expecting from this game, the biggest of the week?
Texas is Texas, and when they win a game against somebody, somebody who'd they beat last week? I don't even know. Louisiana Monroe, something like that. Yeah. Quinn Ewers looked pretty good. I mean, he ran the ball a little bit. He could sling it. So you never know. I mean, Texas, Alabama looked fantastic, but they were playing the Sisters of the Poor too. So we'll see. This is the first test for both teams. I think Bama is as good as advertised. I really do. Whether the top team or the number 2 team in the country doesn't matter at this point. I think they're definitely one of those two. And Bryce Young, he still has guys to throw to.
I think Bama's going to wipe the floor with them eventually. It may, there'll be some hype coming out and they'll be fired up. And there's over 100,000 in that stadium. That's nothing Bama's not used to, right? There's like 101, 102. Bama's not going to back down from that whatsoever. So,
I don't want to give away too much because I'm going to talk for 25 minutes later on the game.
All right. John Chance says Iowa State +4 at Iowa. You want some of that, Marty. You're absolutely right. I got some of that coming for you, Chancey. Hang tight when we get to the picks here. Some numbskull says Texas covering the spread this week is like Notre Dame covering the spread last week. Congrats, I guess. Exactly. Congrats, and we'll send your condolences to your hospital room, Quinn Ewers. Now, Clemson takes on the Furman this week. I don't think there's any question about who wins this game. But, there's plenty to clean up. I don't know. We're all predicting around 40-ish, something to 7, and some of us are going even higher than that. I just want to see a clean game with clean snaps to the quarterback who throws clean passes to the open, hopefully wide receivers, and Will Shipley to gain more than 15 yards on the ground.
Yeah, now one thing that I'm doing for Rubbing the Rock is doing a little research, and I did it for Georgia Tech, and I'll do it for Furman as well. Not too much over the top knowledge, or I don't know. It's not over the top with words, even though it was 1,600 words last week. But a lot more information on the teams. I am doing one for Furman, and I just got started on it today, as a matter of fact, and they haven't been scored upon yet this year, so I might find a way that Furman beats Clemson this week, but I'm not sure yet.
1,600 words. You know what Chancey calls that? A paragraph.
The lead.
An intro paragraph. That's what Chancey calls 1,600 words. All right, Casey, it is time. Our third wheel is in the chat, so he's going to help us out when we get there. But it's time for this week's. I don't think you could have done any worse if you tried.
Well, I take that as a victory.
These guys aren't doing research, so why should I? Beef, you stink the most.
A true believer in what they're doing in North Carolina. That's why I'm picking Virginia Tech, Tennessee.
I love Spencer Rattler.
I agree with Marty.
I don't like this.
Look, you smell it, the backdoor cover.
All right, Zach Locks Parker is in first place. He went an amazing 3-0 last week. Congrats, Locks. I mean that in all sincerity, at least for right now. Maybe not in 5 minutes, but right now, all sincerity, congratulations. You went 3-0. Casey and I both went 1-2. I had a great shot at being in first place for 55 or so minutes of the Clemson game. As happy as I was with the block punt, as happy as I was with the Cade Klubnik touchdown drive, it cost me 5,000 Sluggo bucks, and I'm in last place. All right. Okay, Zach, you have the option of going first or second or third.
He's going to go last. I can answer for him.
Yeah, I was assuming he would go last, so we'll take that. And since I'm in last place, I'll go first. I'm going to take a wild chance here. UTSA lost a close game to Houston last week in overtime. They have to play Army this week. And Zach says he wants to go last and also predicts what place he'll end up in at the end of the season. So I'm going to take UTSA -2 at Army. Going to be a tough game because of the offense the Army plays, like it is for everyone. But I believe in this UTSA team more than that. I believe in the coach. I think he's a great coach. He'll have them ready. I haven't even thought about this, but I'm going to go UTSA -2 for 500 Sluggo bucks. Casey?
Good pick. I know. I got mine. I know we talked. Yeah, I got mine. So my first pick is actually the game we just talked about earlier with Alabama and Texas. I have Alabama -20, like Locke said. If they cover, great. If not, great. I just think Alabama's too much. Again, I truly believe that defense. I didn't even talk about that defense before. We're led by Will Anderson and a bunch of other 5-star players. It's just locked and loaded. It's literally apply, rinse, repeat for them. I think Texas may be having a good season. They may end up having a great season. That's what I meant to say. But I don't think that they're going to be at the level of an Alabama this week. I think Alabama covers easily 500 Sluggo bucks.
All right, 500 for both of us. Whoops, I put an extra 0 on there, Beef. I was trying to give you a Marty.
Hey, I thought about that one for this one too, but I figured that number's a little big. So
yeah. All right, Locks, you're now up, and you took the Kentucky money line. They are plus 170. Playing Florida this week. So if you win this will give you a distinct advantage. Let us know in the comments, how much do you want to put on the Kentucky plus 170? and we'll play some music.
That's a ballsy pick there. I mean, the darling. I think that's the darling pick this week. I've seen it a couple times on social media.
All right. Locks has spoke. Well, he hasn't spoken. He has typed $600. He loves, or $600. Excuse me, Sluggo bucks. $600. I think it's a good pick. Maybe a little risky, but look, for 600, he's going to get, I think, 1,000 and something back if Kentucky wins the game, and it's not out of the question for sure.
He's not thinking that way. Kentucky
going 10-2 this year. Okay, he is on the pain meds now. We have confirmed he's on the meds. John Chansey was talking trash in the chat about Iowa and Iowa State. How many times have we seen this? Iowa State cannot beat Iowa with the greatest coach ever at Iowa State, which I think is high. He's highly overrated. Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell. I got this at 3.5. Iowa minus 3.5, and it's coming in at 105. Now, as we know, Iowa scored 7 last week. As some people probably know, they did not score a touchdown. They had a field goal and 2 safeties. But I'm confident they're going to win this game. They've won 6 in a row in this series. They've covered 4 out of those 6. They're playing in Iowa City. Give me Iowa minus 3.5. And don't tell me I don't have any balls. I just picked a team that got a field goal and 2 safeties last week to cover more than a field goal. I'm so confident I'm going with 500 Sluggo bucks.
Good pick, Marty. Good pick. My next game is Southern Miss. Hattiesburg, Mississippi's finest is traveling to the University of Miami. Miami's 26-point favorites. That's a huge number, a.k.a. 4 touchdown favorites, give or take 2 points. But I think right now, Mario Cristobal and Miami, they put a 70 burger up last week on Bethune-Cookman. Southern Miss is going to have a little bit more of a pulse than Bethune. However, I still think Miami is going for all looks right now. They're trying to be the pretty girl at the prom here. So I think Miami covers that 26 with ease. I think it's like a 45-10 type of game there. And I'm going 1,000 Sluggo bucks on Miami.
Casey, look at me. I'm going low. You guys are going high. Casey has taken 2 huge favorites. 2 and 2 picks. What will he do?
It worked out so well for me last year that I finished second.
And last week. Zach Locks Parker, our first place undefeated reigning champion. I didn't throw up the picture of the ring. He is going with Arkansas minus 9. They're playing the Gamecocks of South Carolina, and I forget if it's what's the name of the thing now? I think they went back to the old name. Anyway, Gamecocks, South Carolina. Zach is not a believer in the South Carolina offensive line. Boy, that matchup with Clemson is looking better by the day. And then with those 2 offensive lines, it might be another 9-6 cabal game here. He says the offensive line is horrible, and he's going with 1,000. He's trying to keep up with you, Beef. And it's working well. Okay, my third and final pick. I'm going to put some stress on the boys on this one. The young men from Waco, Texas, are traveling to Provo, Utah to take on the 36-year-old college football team known as BYU. If you guys don't know, Waco is about 6 inches above sea level. They're going to the mountains of Utah. They may jump out to an early lead, but I'm going with the Grandpas, BYU minus 3 over Baylor, and I'm going 2,000 Sluggo bucks on BYU. Beef, what you got?
Wow, that's a whoa. I can't talk tonight, so I just have to say sounds. My third and final pick, I'm going 500 Sluggo bucks. I know that's supposed to come last, but I'm just getting you warmed up here.
Thank you.
Pittsburgh, Tennessee, the over-under. I don't know the number. You have it for me. 52, 65. And I'm going with the over. I'm going over 65. I just think the way that both these teams can score, I think I'm crazy. I should probably change it to 250 Sluggo bucks, but I'm not going to do it. Over Pitt, Tennessee, over 65.
All right.
This is going in the shredder.
Good pick. Locks gets the final pick. He's also betting on that game, and this is a pick that I considered in my picks, but are considered taking in my picks. I can't speak either. What a pair. And but I didn't trust Pittsburgh after what I saw from their offensive line last week, and I don't trust Tennessee after just one game. Locks is taking Tennessee minus 6.5, a good number, right under a touchdown. And how many Sluggo bucks does Locks want to put on? He says he's not sold on Pitt after last week. I agree with that. Man, I'm agreeing with him more now that he's not on the show. I'm agreeing with him more and more. And 300 on UT doesn't feel good about it. Okay, Locks 300. So let's run these down real quick.
I think Mrs. Locks has the handle on the purse strings or something. I don't know. He's betting light tonight.
Yeah, he's light, all right. Okay, here we go. Let's start out with Locks, our reigning champion and leader. $600 on the Kentucky money line plus 170. 1,000 on Arkansas minus 9. He's confident the Razorbacks are going to put it to the Gamecocks. That's actually one game I hope he wins. And 300 on Tennessee minus 6.5 against Pittsburgh. Casey the Beef Creedman is currently in second place. He's taken Alabama minus 20 for 500 Sluggo bucks. Miami of Florida minus 26 for 1,000 Sluggo bucks. Casey's going with the big favorites and a high total over 65 in Tennessee and Pittsburgh. Me, I'm in last place, and you're about to find out why. I am taking BYU 2,000 Sluggo bucks for BYU minus 3, I should say, for 2,000 Sluggo bucks. I'm taking Iowa in their safety-laden team minus 3.5 against Iowa State, and I'm laying money on UTSA, or laying points, UTSA minus 2, playing Army for 500 Sluggo bucks. Now, what's really scary to me about this, if you look at that, Beef, I'm taking 3 favorites, but nobody's taking an underdog. Everybody's got favorites. You got an over, and Locks has a money line. Nobody's taking the underdog. I guess Kentucky could be seen as an underdog there, but none of us are taking the underdogs this week. All right, Beef. It has been fun. It has been real. Locks, get better, bud. We'll see you hopefully next week. We'll be texting how bad you're losing over the weekend. Don't worry. We'll catch. Oh, Locks did send in a message, Casey, a video message. I forgot to play this. This is after the scores were tabulated last week. It's long and detailed. Try and hang with it.
I'm the man.
That was it. Now he's out this week, so we missed the United States favorite game show, but we can still play the sounder because it's so fun.
I believe went to my high school. I just clicked on him by accident.
Everybody went to your high school.
Everybody went there.
Except you two, schmoes.
Hopefully next week we can play you two schmoes. Locks will be back, and we can play you two schmoes. Beef, tell the people thank you, and let's get out of here because I'm losing my voice too.
Thanks to JP Priester of allclemson.com. Why are we thanking JP? I don't know. Everyone, it's just on the sheet. Everyone in the Seldom Used Reserve College Football Discussion Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite for all his help, John Chansey for being a good all-around guy, Uncle John McGee, as always, the Sluggo Podcast, and each and every one of you who listens, likes, shares, and participates. We really do appreciate it. On behalf of Marty, Seldom Used Reserve Coleman, I am Casey the Beef Cregan. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, check out rubbingtherock.com, and we'll see you next week right here, hopefully with Locks on Sluggo.
Yes, and we'll play you two schmoes if Locks comes back. See you, Beef.
I think we're done here.